Pete Iorizzo joins us here on Big Board Sports this morning. Good morning, Pete.
Morning, Roger. How's it going? Congratulations on the new show. You guys sound great.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and it's great to have you aboard as well as we continue the tradition of reacting to your Sunday column. And let me just ask you, I mean, in terms of sports that we're going to start to cover that maybe we are not used to covering or seeing in the capital region, that's going to be a big change, right? With the convention center is going to open up a lot of doors.
Yeah, well, certainly the folks at Times Union Center hope so.
We have Pete back on with us, sports editor, columnist for the Times Union. Pick it up, Pete.
I was talking to myself there for about 5 minutes.
we didn't hear you on our end, so we had to drop you and redial. But talk about the convention center and what it will mean in terms of getting different sports here in the capital region.
Well, it just opens up some new opportunities for them. They're going to continue to bid for. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. I don't know how much you guys heard the first time around. They're going to continue to bid for basketball and hockey, which they always have every year. The convention center gives them a chance to bid for some of the other NCAA sports, too. This time around, they're doing fencing and volleyball. In the case of fencing, because you need a little bit of a smaller venue, they could actually hold fencing in the convention center itself. Volleyball comes with not just the actual volleyball championships themselves, but they do a coaches convention for all the NCAA volleyball coaches and an expo too. So you need space to hold all that, which obviously the convention center would give them. Volleyball, by the way, is no small event. They had last year was Omaha that hosted. They had something like 17,000 people there for that. Granted, that was with Nebraska in the actual championship, but I think the year before it was in Oklahoma City and they had something like 11,000 people there.
Now, the convention hall for itself, in terms of seating, it's not going to seat that many people.
No, volleyball would actually be held. The actual volleyball matches would be held in Times Union Center, but you need space to do the coaches convention and the expo, which that they could do in the convention center and even Empire State Plaza, because all those three areas will all be connected by a covered walkway in the future.
Pete, I was just asking Roger, the thing I want to ask you most is, while Roger's excited because the ability to host NCAA championships could mean that we get men's basketball back here, is my question to you, is this an admission by Albany that they're going to have trouble getting men's basketball, that now we're switching our goals to other things?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think in some ways it is. They're not saying that they're not going to continue to try to get basketball anymore, but I mean the reality is it's just gotten really difficult to get that event here. A lot's changed since 2003 when NCAA men's basketball was last year. You look around, you look at the arenas that are getting that event in the Northeast, and they're Buffalo and Brooklyn and East, the Meadowlands and Newark and they're Boston. These are NBA arenas that are bigger than Times Union Center and have more amenities than Times Union Center. The convention center, I think, makes it a little more realistic in the sense that when the NCAA is handing out the NCAA men's basketball tournament now, they're looking not just at the arena itself, but where can they do all the ancillary stuff that goes along with it? Where can they have a workroom for the media? Where can they hold their fan fest? Is there going to be practice courts for the teams? Times Union Center currently doesn't have any of that stuff. The convention center will give that to them. So I think that at least puts them a little bit more in the running. But still, the Northeast is just tough. There's just so many other more modern, bigger venues that they're in direct competition with.
And will we all be covering these events?
I suppose we will, right? I guess we better bone up on our fencing.
I think fencing and volleyball, but I get it. And also, let me ask you this. I mean, how much revenue does all of this bring in? I mean, in your column here on Sunday, you wrote, and fencing, even with its much more modest attendance, did bring more than 10,000 visitors to Columbus, Ohio, along with an economic impact of $5 million.
Yeah, so there you go. Columbus is a little bit of a bigger market than Albany, but you're going to have, you'd have 4 teams come here and their traveling parties, and you're not going to be talking about crowds of 10,000 per se, but you get all those people going downtown. Look, I think anytime Albany has a chance to host an NCAA championship, whether it's fencing or men's basketball, I don't think it's ever a bad thing for the city to build that relationship with the NCAA and prove that it's capable hosting these kinds of events and supporting them, because I think that does help in the future when they're hoping to land the big one, which is the NCAA men's tournament.
Yeah, I'll hold out hope that will happen. We did such a good job here in 2003 when Syracuse passed through and went on to win the national championship. And now this gives Bob Belber, the GM, and his crew another avenue and say, hey, we now have a convention center. We can do a lot more. But ultimately, Pete, doesn't it lately come down to just the size of the arena?
Yeah, that's one problem that they unfortunately just can't overcome. There's you're talking about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 more seats in a lot of these other venues, and that's a problem that they're not going to be able to overcome anytime soon. But there is something. I think the NCAA does recognize that there is value in bringing its event to other markets. So maybe at some point that gets Albany back in the rotation. But I think maybe probably 10 years ago when it was here in 2003, I think everyone thought, Albany's on track here for every 5 years the NCAA tournament is going to come through. I don't think that'll ever be the case anymore.
Reacting to Pete Iorizzo's column, get ready for sports you haven't seen. Check it out in the Sunday edition and also online, and we'll react to your column this time next week. Pete, thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Again, congrats on the new show.